This is going to be posterior pelvic tilts, and I'm going to show different ways of being able to tier this, whether it be easier or harder. Now, generally when you start off with this, what you're going to do is you're going to start on the ground with your back flat and your feet up to your butt. From here, what you're working on is taking the lower belly and flexing it so that you are pushing your lower back into the ground. And as you get better at this, you start to notice your tailbone lift just a little bit. It's a very subtle movement. And from this point, this is a great place to get the activation and understand how the movement works. But there's very, very little to, as far as intensity goes, there's very little to it. So from this point, we're going to take what we figured out here, that I can turn my abs up and push my low back to the ground, and I can start walking my feet further out. The whole point of this is not only to make it more intense, but to make it a bit more productive, because a big reason why people might need to do a posterior pelvic tilt is because what is called lower cross syndrome, where your glutes do not contract well and your lower abdominals do not contract well because they're in a big stretch all the time. So what we want to work on is pulling the low abs up from a further and further stretch until we can get them properly strong through that stretch. So notice I'm doing the same movement. It's very, very small, but it's more so than it was when my legs were up. And I'm just pushing my lower back to the ground. My tailbone curls into the air just a little bit, and my abs are being initiated from the low portion up to the belly button and pulling up. So from there, I'm going to go out even further and keep trying to exaggerate it. So you can see just a little bit more movement here. Now you want to make sure that you're not stiffening your legs too much, or you're not driving through with your feet. I want all of my movement to be produced from the lower abdomen. Lastly, on this part, I can go completely straight-legged. And then from here, what I'd like to do is flex my glutes. And what it's going to do is it's going to press my pelvis up into the air, so that way I have a bit more arching happening from my back to the ground. And I can take those lower abs and I can push much further now. If you need help with this, what you can try doing is taking a hand and putting it under your low back, and think of squashing your hands with your lower back. So I'm keeping my glutes flexed and I am driving upward with my low abs, squashing my hands. Once I get good here, I want to go ahead and stretch my arms out to help put my abs into a stretch in the upper region, and do the same thing. Now I'm getting a much greater movement and a much greater pull. Once I'm pretty confident with my ability to do that, what I can do is let my legs go a little bit stiff, and as I turn my pelvis and pull my abs up, I can actually lift my legs into the air. And this is what you would classically know as 6 inches or as leg raises, except we have a couple more things going on. I have my glutes flexed to pivot off of. I'm focusing on pulling up only with my lower abdomen and pushing my low back to the floor. So it should feel like your legs don't lift up, but rather they are floated up, and my hips are not really doing anything. Now, if all of that is too difficult, or getting on the floor is too difficult, that's what we're going to use an incline bench for. What I can do here is I can start myself higher, and from this point do the same thing, except I'm treating the back of this bench as the floor. I'm going to leave my feet stuck out, and I'm going to push my low back into the bench, and then release. Low back into the bench, release. And again, if you're having a hard time getting that movement, you can take your hands and put it behind your low back and then squash them into the bench. Once I'm better here, I can lower this further And this is how you would just keep progressing this until you can get to the point of getting either to a flat bench or getting to the floor. And then I can go all the way flat. And from that point, I'm going to go back to what I was doing on the floor. I'm going to flex my glutes to create a little bit more arch. And then I can leave my legs bent so as to not have so much weight and leverage, and push it flat to the bench. And then as I need it to be harder, I can just bring my feet out further. And I can go all the way out like this.